It's all right.
Okay, you guys are live.
All right, good morning. This is the Public Services and Facilities Committee meeting, 9 a.m. Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, first thing, citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments? Nope. Approval of the previous meeting minutes. Motion to approve. Or comments?
Second, and talk about it.
All in favor?
Well, I do have some
comments.
corrections. I think I sent you an email this morning. There's some comments in there about the prior, I think it's in section 3B, where it says Administrator Kerr stated that the creating an MOU should be formalized once new council is in place. He added that historically the WDCA has paid 55% of beach nourishment, renourishment inside Wild Dunes. The city pays for the remaining 45 and 100% of sand placed elsewhere on the island. Administrator Kerr said that a draft MOU should be available for review in January. I think that was miscalculated or miscalculated.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is not the historical rate of contribution. That's describing more the kind of plan that we've been working towards and working on and assumptions we've had. But yeah, that is,
So it's not a contribution historically,
It's the-
that's what the working plan is moving forward.
the percentages, those are what we've kind of contemplated, and they hadn't been established, but what we've been working towards for the next renourishment, not
Okay,
the,
so take out historically, basically, is what it
correct.
Yeah, Nicole, and I'm going to pass around the schedule because I think this is going to be pertinent going forward. The city has historically contributed 16% to the, what did I call you? Say Nicole.
You said Nicole.
16% of the budgets for the renourishment, and Wild Dunes, it looks like, was 50%. And then we had Charleston County was 4%, and FEMA was pretty much the remaining of that. So I think that's going to be kind of critical when we get into the conversation about the contributions. And I'm going to pass out a form, and I'd like that included in the minutes as well, please. Yeah.
Yeah, here's a cleaner version.
And these numbers came from Desiree. Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. With those amendments, motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The marine attendants. Any marine attendants? No presentations. New business, discussion of the USACE projects. Jacob Kaiser.
Yeah, we've requested and invited Jacob here. Jacob, if you don't mind, if you'll come up, and hopefully that mic is on. We have been talking a lot about the Army Corps of Engineer projects on the south end of the island, and we thought it would be a good opportunity for him to be here and answer questions and kind of talk through where they are with their various projects. They really have at least two that are going to direct us, impact us directly, and he could just kind of walk through those, give us a status update, and then answer any questions that we have.
Great.
Yeah, so again, my name is Jacob Kaiser. I'm the navigation project manager for the Army Corps in Charleston District. All of our navigation projects kind of fall under my purview for the most part, Charleston Harbor and the Intercoastal Waterway being the two largest. And we have some smaller inlets that also work on Murrells Inlet, Little River, projects like that, the Corps' mission is to provide navigation in those areas. So if you flip the page to the next one, just a quick overview of kind of the waterway itself.
Can I ask a quick question? Can anybody that's watching the meeting see these, or is this just ours?
We can put them on. We don't have these yet, but
Okay.
we can get these from Jacob and put them on the.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide that after.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just a quick overview, just the total waterway in South Carolina. So it's 235 miles long, in Charleston District. we're responsible for 210 miles of that. And if you see these reaches on the next page, we divided into 3 reaches just for management purposes. Gives us an idea of where our projects are located when those are happening, and also kind of do that for some funding reasons as well. So 3 reaches. Once you get to Port Royal, the southern portion is managed by the Savannah District. And 12-foot authorized depth, it's 90 feet wide from toe to toe. So originally constructed back in the 30s, so been around quite a while. So getting to the kind of the projects that affect the Isle of Palms. So like I said previously, our main mission here is navigation. So we're trying to provide a navigable waterway for mariners to use it. I was at the Intercoastal Waterway Association meeting in Savannah a couple weeks ago, and they're taking to calling it the Marine Highway 95. So it's getting the attention it deserves, because commercial traffic uses it, tons of recreational traffic. There's folks that, the cruising community that do the loop that goes all the way through the Mississippi River and down through all the waterways all the way back around. So, our main mission, again, navigation, but what we are hearing from the commercial mariner community is that Breach Inlet Shoal is the worst part in our entire waterway in South Carolina for them to navigate, because it's sand that's coming in on the flood tide off the beaches, shoals in, creates just a roadblock for them. So we're trying to focus a lot of our funding on managing that one shoal as we look at our priorities for the year. So couple projects that affecting y'all's community right now is one of these is the sediment rehandling project at Breach Inlet. Part of what we have to do for dredging is to have once we dredge the material out of the channel, we have to have a place to put it. And historically, the cheapest option for us has been to put it directly in these upland placement cells that are along the waterway. So you'll see in that diagram there that there's several that are highlighted, and those are 4 that have historically been used to manage the Breach Inlet Shoal. We pump sand into those. They eventually get full, and you run out of capacity, and then you have nowhere to put the sand. So what would typically happen is we would dry those cells out. We would use that sand to raise the dikes, create more capacity, and continue to pump that material in there. But we've since identified that sand is a valuable resource. I know y'all in the coastal community know that, and we've made a big push to try to use sand in a beneficial use, as a beneficial use component when we're dredging. Try to find uses for that the community can we can leverage that for community beneficial use purposes and that kind of thing. So, due to proximity. We were looking at this a couple of years ago. We knew we had to do a dike raising, but considering we had this amount of sand, we wanted to try to get that material offloaded and basically put back onto the beaches and out of that placement site. So for the last year and a half, we've been working to offload the sand using a dredge to pump that material to both Sullivan's Island and majority of the sand going to IOP, so on the south end there. Total scope of the project was 700,000 cubic yards, and right now we have about 220,000 cubic yards remaining that is still slated to come to IOP.
So Jacob, of the 700,000, how many, that's for both IOP and Sullivan's?
Yeah, well, that's round numbers, so I think the original scope was 750,000 as an estimated quantity. Once you get in there and survey, that changes a bit, so
Sure.
I'm kind of rounding off. And that is material available to be offloaded from the islands itself. It doesn't necessarily equate to the exact number that gets delivered to the beach, because you have some losses in transit, so the material is placed into a slurry, hydraulic slurry in the water. So some of that material basically gets into the water column and moves offshore in the process. Some of it, I guess that's the answer. Some of it
Some of it
basically
sticks
moves
and some of it
offshore.
goes, yeah.
So the lighter material, the siltier material, stuff like that, will typically migrate and the sand falls out and stays in the beach system.
Okay, and the only reason I'm asking, we had originally heard that there was another 350,000 or so cubic yards still coming to IOP, and it sounds like that's a little bit lower number now. Or-
Well, that's correct. So we have two projects ongoing. This is the first that we've been doing for a while. This was the purpose of this project was to gain capacity in those placement areas that we need for future use. And so if you just turn the page here, this photo is actually, this is the Ocean Rangers heavy lift crane that's stationed in Charleston. It's a joint venture between the Port Authority and Stevens Towing. This is like a 500-ton capacity crane. They actually took the dredge, so that's the lift being made, place it in the placement, up into the upland placement site in those islands, and they're using that dredge to offload the sand that's come to the beach. And then, so still talking about the current ongoing project, next page, I just wanted to share some survey data with you. So this being a navigation priority project, we weren't seeking to do any kind of we weren't seeking to do a full-scale beach renourishment. So, under the federal standards, still looking at kind of the for lack of a better term, cheapest option to manage the waterway. We wanted to limit the footprint of material, or footprint of equipment on the beach, that every time there's another piece of equipment, obviously costs more money. So we chose to place all the material below the high tide line, and that was both the limit costs and also we knew there was some silt in the sediment that needed to be washed, so you didn't want, mud on your beach, basically. So put it in the surf zone, allowed some washing to happen over time. And so the red line in these diagrams is the pre-placement survey. That to the left side of the graph, that point that's at 0 is basically the start of the survey, which is the measured mean high water line at the date of the survey. And then the blue line is the post-placement survey. And this is approximately at 3rd Avenue. So a lot of this material is in the low tide portion of the beach. So at low tide, it's exposed, but you can see that we've got quite a bit of accretion that had happened there.
So are these two different dates here? Or how does
Yeah,
that-
these are different dates. So
You know
red
what-
line is before any placement happened, blue line is after placement was
What's
completed.
what's the top versus the bottom graph?
One is third, one is, there's,
Yeah, the
Are these
different
different
stations, so those are
locations?
station
Oh,
numbers, so,
sorry.
so 12, Station 12 is 3rd Avenue.
yeah, and
Station
then 100
13
feet down the beach, so 13 is,
Oh,
it's
okay.
another 100 feet.
Gotcha.
Okay, and this is out, you said at the low tide, kind of like.
So what you're showing is that there is actually more sand out there. It's just mostly it's underwater.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of it is underwater, so at high tide, you've got a little bit of elevation gain, and there's a couple feet there that you've gained at the high tide line. So, but yeah, the majority of the sand is in the lower portions of the beach, low tide. So you have some wave attenuation happening there. I'm not a coastal engineer, but coastal engineers use the term depth of closure. So basically, you put sediment within the system. I think y'all are probably familiar with like an offshore berm or sandbar that forms off the beach certain times of year. That's your feeder berm. So as sand is within that depth of closure, as wave action happens during certain times of year, it pushes sand up on the beach.
So, Jacob, is it kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to read this. I don't know what the dates are of the two, but I don't think it matters. These are like a year and a half apart.
I don't have the dates in front of me. I think this is more likely several months apart.
We just don't know though, for sure. Okay.
But it's really just two locations, Scott.
Yeah.
The two.
Up in the, yeah, I get it. So if I'm looking at looks like where the most of the sand is, and this is like the feet from they're in the reach, this is the reach.
Yeah, so
So the-
going out from beach to ocean.
Yeah, so this is
That's like a cross cut.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
cross cut of your beach, right?
So this is like a 3rd, you said? 3rd Avenue?
3rd Avenue, yep. I think the top one is about 3rd and the bottom one is about 100 feet from 3rd as I'm,
Yeah,
Up towards
approximately.
4th. Closer to
Fourth.
Fourth, okay.
And Jacob, is high water about 2?
High water is elevation 2.01, I think, on, at
So-
IFB, yeah.
So if you look at the left, if you look at the, I guess it's the y-axis, if you look at 2 there, and kind of go it across, you can see there's a little bit of green hash mark that's above 2, which would be high water, but almost all of it is below 2, which would be in that intertidal area.
Yep.
That's right.
And what is low tide? Low tide gets down to -4? Something like
There's
that?
different datums, so, yeah, it's in the negative range. So our placement zone in this contract is from the 2-foot elevation, which is approximately high tide, mean high water, to -7 is the targeted zone for placement.
So some sand is staying on the beach at 3rd, 4th Avenue.
Okay.
Some of it is obviously washing down. Are you finding more is now back in that breach inlet area, like then?
So we're.
Are
so
you
we're
finding a
not-
lot of this sand
so-
ending up there?
So this is a survey in the point in time, so several months probably between the red line and the blue line. And for the purposes of this project, as a navigation project, we're not doing extensive surveying of breach inlet and that kind of thing. We're putting the sand out there and getting it back into the beach system. Some of it is eventually going to make its way back into our channel, and we're going to dredge it again. So-
I mean, you made it crystal clear that this isn't a nourishment project,
Right,
and we
right.
understand that
Yeah.
completely. I guess where I'm trying to go, and I think where maybe Katie is too, that, I don't know what this represents volume-wise out of the 700,000 cubic yards, and we've had, our consultant came in and he said the first 250,000 was so fine that it pretty much washed out. And there is concern that the sand that's being placed, a lot of it is anecdotally clogging up breach. And we've had 3 consultants now tell us that breach inlet is the major cause of the erosion down there. So if this is building up in 3rd and 4th, but the erosion's occurring south of there, are there any studies, or should we be doing a study that says, hey, what is the impact of all of this sand that you're dropping? Is it filling up breach? Is it causing more erosion? Is it causing a bigger sandbar or going over to Sullivan's Island? And I think what you're saying is that's not your business.
Yeah, I can't really speak to we're not studying the inlet at all. So we know that on flood tide, the sediment that comes off those beaches and through that inlet ends up in our channel, and we have to dredge it.
In breach inlet channel.
The chain.
In the channel in the intercoastal.
In the intercoastal. So it's
So-
coming all the way through
Yeah.
Hamlin out into the intercoastal.
So
And you know that.
And that's natural forces, with or without this project. We could dredge the intercoastal waterway yearly and still remove plenty of sand out of that inlet. So we're gonna dredge it, and in 2 years, we could turn around and dredge it again. So there's a lot of sand that moves through that inlet.
When will that be dredged?
So
next?
that's the next project.
Just to kind of add to that point, that work of surveying that inlet is work that we added to Stevens' contract to be done twice a year. So we are, the city though is doing the survey of what's happening in the inlet with the amounts of sand.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm going, Douglas, on that, and again, this isn't on you all, Jacob, but if, it sounds like we're in just a cycle of you dump it, goes back through the inlet, goes out in the intercoastal, dredge it, bring it back out of here again. In the meantime, surveying is one thing, but, what can we do? If there's been multiple opinions now that says that the inlet is causing, it's a significant cause of the erosion. I think that was Steve's actual quote out of his document. And then the other 2 are saying that surveying isn't going to help solve for the problem. So how do we, and maybe this is a conversation for another day, but if the intercoastal dredging and placement is causing more erosion, I think we better know that and prove it that it's not causing any more erosion.
Yeah, I think the point you're making is good, and I think you're right, that they have all kind of agreed that the inlet itself is dynamic and it's causing erosion. I don't know that anybody has ever tied additional sand on the beach as contributing. So that would be a thing to, I
It's just
think,
we don't
study.
know. And it's
Right.
one of those, we don't know what the impact, because the Army Corps is not studying it before they're placing a sand, and we're not studying it either, so nobody's looking at it. But they've all three consultants have said that that inlet is the cause of the erosion, and so.
And that inlet has been the cause of the need for dredging in the intercoastal waterway for the last 100 years.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's a lot of sediment moving back and forth through that inlet. It's mostly a flood tide inlet, so if you look at aerials of places like in Florida that have clear water, you can see like there's an inlet, sand comes off the beach, and then you just have this big delta that builds up in the back creeks and in the intercoastal waterway and things like that. So that's what's going on here is that you have a flood tide influenced inlet that creates shoals back in the intercoastal waterway and then the back creeks and stuff like that as well.
Can you go back to that comment you said about the shoal here is you said it's the most challenging one up on our coastline, or what was, can you elaborate that?
For our purposes of managing the intercoastal waterway, it is the priority shoal for the commercial mariners and recreational mariners for that.
But you're talking
for
about in the
Intercoastal.
intercoastal, not out. in
Not in
the
Breach Inlet, that's what I,
Right,
yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify
Back,
too.
yeah.
But
And
it's
he's
influenced by
referencing-
that inlet. So anywhere you have an inlet crossing, there's typically a big shoal that happens in the waterway itself.
And Jacob, when you say it's the most kind of problematic, you're talking about from the Charleston district standpoint. You're
Correct.
not speaking
Yeah.
entirety of the intercoastal, but in your district, it is the most shoaling part of the intracoastal waterway.
That's correct. And it's sand, so that creates we have other areas of high shoaling, but we have bluff mud shoaling. So a barge and tugboat trying to go through the intercoastal water, when they encounter that, it's not a speed bump like a big sand shoal is.
So if we were to look at trying to manage that intercoastal, or the breach inlet, that's not in your domain at all?
It's not.
This breach is not considered navigable, right? Or it's not a.
It's not a federal navigation project, so we haven't, there's areas, if you look at Merle's Inlet, for instance, is a federal navigation project. I think it's Georgetown County, back in the 70s, came to the Corps and said, we want to establish a hardened inlet here, and there was a cost share situation. They paid for a portion of it, the federal government paid for a portion of it, now you have jetties and a stabilized inlet. Same thing at Little River.
Well, can you say anything about the sand quality, that is it beach compatible that you're seeing in these next 220,000 cubic yards, or what?
It is.
Is it better than it was?
So
or-
the sand quality, if we were going to do a beach renourishment for you, we would want a larger grain size.
Than what we're getting, or?
Yeah, so this is it's sand, but it has a finer grain size. So that's another reason why we wanted to place it in the surf zone, because it tends to want to naturally stay in that location, because it's just a finer grain. But it is beach quality. I mean, the sand's coming off the beaches through the inlet and ended up in the waterway.
Should we measure this in another, I guess that'd be on us, but take a look at, see if it's holding. You've got the baseline here, see if that holds in 6 months or a year to.
It'd be
we're-
interesting to know.
That is Stephen's work. That's his, every 6 months they survey it and kind of report what's shifting between the various reaches.
All right, we can, so if there's no more questions on that one, we can come back if y'all have any other questions. But the next project that is coming down the pipe very quickly, actually, is the waterway dredging itself. So we awarded a contract in September to Cottrell Dredging. They have, portion of the project was to do some work for the Coast Guard, which we did in Charleston Harbor. That work's been completed, and they're going to start actually mobilizing to the waterway within the next week and a half. This contract includes dredging of the entirety of Breach Inlet Shoal, and there's another shoal near Deweese that they're going to also include in the contract. A portion, so there's about 265,000 cubic yards available that is sand that we would be placing on the beach, and then there's another 400,000 cubic yards of finer grain, which is your like pluff mud type of material that's going to be placed in an open water placement area on the north end of the island in Deweese Inlet. So that's an area that has been used historically for open water placement.
North end of Isle Falls.
Yep, Deweese Inlet. So it's closer to the waterway. There's a little island.
So none of this, so you're not putting any of this in the, what we used to call spoils areas?
That's correct, yeah. But yeah, so we have about 265,000 cubic yards of the sand shoal that will be coming to the beach. Right now, they're going to start with the two open water placement areas, or the two shoals that are going to the open water placement area. And the reason for that is just to help buy some more time for our other contractor, Ahtna, to try to get off the beach. But we do think there's going to, at some point, be a conflict between the two, and they may both be placing on the beach at the same time. So we're working through that right now with them.
Jacob, is there, it says it's going to go between 6th and 9th. I think the place we need sand down at the, down at 1, 2, and 3. Is there any possibility that this sand goes where we need it? Or is that something that, is it a cost issue? Is it
so-
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit, in that their initial pumping area was closer to Second. We found that it just didn't stay there, that it was kind of making its way off of the beach and off the island. So I think we made the request of you all, during that time, we were making the request to move it north so that it would be more likely to stay. But we also would have authorization for the city to transport it into the high berm area if we chose to. So that they would not be able to put it, so they would, under their kind of project, they'd have to put it in that intertidal zone. And we think that if they were to do that, it would immediately be unavailable. We think if they put it farther north, it would stay in the beach, work its way up, and be accessible to the city if we were to choose to move it around. The other kind of compounding issue here is, in addition, I think that Jacob's talked about 220,000 cubic yards plus an additional 265 with this project. And then we have kind of as early as April, a major renourishment project starting also potentially in that area. So not that there's an issue of too much sand, but there will be, there's planned to be an awful lot of sand on that end of the beach in the next year.
So does it look like the permits are going to get issued in March or February?
Talked to Stephen yesterday. He hadn't, the public comment period hasn't closed yet, and I think that will kind of drive a little bit of the speed at which that's issued. I think it's this week that it does close, so I think we'll know more on that, but other than just it being out for public comment, he didn't have much of an update on the timing.
So is this 6th to 9th set, you said this sand's coming quickly, or?
Yes, it's, so they have, they're going to start mobilizing to the actual intercoastal waterway in the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
This is the dredge they're going to be using too. This is the dredge New Market, so you may see it out there. I thought it was a nice picture, so I included it. But they, like I said, they're going to start with the shoals that are not going to the beach as open water placement. So as of right now, I think by the end of January, early February, they would be ready to place material on the beach. And we do know that our other contractor is likely still going to be on the beach just based on their production
Ahtna?
rates. Ahtna, yeah. So we're working with both of those contractors right now just to try to minimize any conflict and trying to make sure they stay out of each other's way.
Is there any I'm not saying there would be, but is there any flexibility in the placement from 6th to 9th if we decided to?
Not at this point, no.
No, it's done.
Yeah, we have awarded a contract and
Got it.
have a price for the work, so we're not going to be renegotiating anything with our contractor.
So Scott, I would say if the city were to want to place some of that sand south, I do think that we have the permit and the authorization to do it.
It's just a lot more cost for us. I mean, if we're versus putting it there in the first place, yeah. But
Right. But I don't think you all could have placed it
Yeah, that
in
was,
a place.
I'd have to go look at it again, but I'm fairly certain that we made some, when we did the environmental clearances and stuff for this work, that we made commitments to place everything at least north of Second Avenue because of the inlet dynamics. So the state was concerned about basically placing material.
Clogging up the breach, yeah.
Basically putting it in the inlet and
Yep.
then it not staying there.
no, makes sense. Can I ask one last thing? I'm sorry to keep you on these questions and everything. I don't know how everybody else feels. Communication for us has been a little difficult as far as finding out what's happening with your projects. Is there, I don't know who the liaison is for the city, but is there something that could be posted? And I'll give you an example. So for, I guess a couple of months ago, we had a meeting and the word was that you completed your task and there was safety issues with the contractor, which we never really understood what those were. There were long periods of, I guess, drought as far as pouring the sand on the beach. We didn't really know what was going on. Our consultant said that he wasn't even sure, it didn't sound like you were even coming back. And then a week later, I discover on my run down the beach, talking to somebody in one of those little carts that, you're starting to pump up that afternoon. So we're in the dark, at least my opinion is, on what's happening, when it's happening, and how it's happening. And this is great information, by the way. How do we get more proactive in getting, and by the way, I know your schedule is your schedule, but how do we find out, and it moves, but how can we find out more about what's happening? Because the residents are clearly hungry for sand in a
Right.
lot of areas. And again, we know it's not a renourishment, but how can we get a better communication between us?
I think the city staff would have to provide additional information. We have every 2-week meetings, and I think there's a certain amount of, this project just hasn't gone as planned, I think, by any stretch.
Right.
So we do get an every 2-week update. I think we try to report that in the capital projects updates or the beach. But if there was a more frequent cadence of reporting out those meetings to the public, I think that would be on the city to do that. We could certainly do that, and I think we knew, it's just been that project to date has been so kind of, it hasn't produced a lot of activity on the beach. I mean, I guess it would have been a year and a half of, and it kind of has been a year and a half of, it's either stalled entirely, or it is, or it's a trickle out at one of the avenues for kind of months on end. So
what did, I mean, I guess, what happened? I mean, when we first heard about this project and when you started on Sullivan's, I feel like at one point we were told it was going to be 2 months.
Yeah. I don't
I
want
mean-
to air dirty laundry, but I mean, we have a contract with a contractor that has had a lot of challenges, to put it
I guess, I
lightly.
mean,
So,
it's great that we're getting this sand.
Yeah.
I guess, assuming that it is actually helping and staying on the beach. But if we're now looking at, basically having dredge material on our beach for the next, I don't know, forever. I mean, to me, it feels like I'm sure that you guys aren't happy either, and, I understand that things happen, but, we have people that live here and
Right.
use this beach, and people that come here to vacation and to go to the beach during the day, the beach is important to a lot of people. And to be told that we have a project that's gonna take 2 months and it's now going on 2 years is frustrating. And so people are saying to us, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And to just have to say, we can't help it, it's the Corps of Engineers is in charge and there's nothing, and we don't know what's going on, doesn't sound so good for us either.
Right.
I mean.
Yeah, we share those same frustrations. I will say that the first contract that we awarded is the first time we've ever done an offloading project. It's a very unique project. It's not routine. We designed it in such a way that we thought the contractor would immediately put a dredge in those placement areas with a crane. So the picture you saw of the crane, we immediately thought that that would be the cheapest way to get the project done. So they would flood the site and then directly dredge it. But we did not limit other means and methods of doing that. And the contractor chose a different means and methods that was very low production to start with. They have since changed their tune, and you saw the photo of the crane finally going in the placement area. That happened a few months ago. And I think production has increased substantially. I think they're telling us that they have about 90 days left of dredging. They'll be done. Right now, it looks like that's pretty accurate. But I will hope that you would judge future placement by this contract that you're looking here, where you have a large dredging directly from the waterway, and they'll be able to place the sand much quicker. And I think, in the future, we'd like to do this again. I think it's a benefit to everyone to not lock that sand up in a placement area that can't be used again. But I hope you judge us by the next contract more so than what the other contract has gone, the way it's gone so far.
So Jacob, Katie's summarized it pretty well. Getting back to, we've had a construction site pretty much on the south end of the beach now for a couple of years. And getting back to communication, there are rental properties, there are homeowners that are, if this is now going to go on between 6th and 9th, that's a whole nother swath of construction site and disruption on the beach. How do we, getting back to communication, is there something we can get, even just a weekly report or something that we could post to our website and put on there that says, hey, this is what's happening, this is where we're going, this is how much we've got left? We've talked about that a couple of times now, but nothing really comes to fruition. I think and some of these homeowners are counting on that sand
Right.
in different ways. How do we know, how long this is going to take? If it's going to start in February, if it's late in March, and then it's high season, it's between 6th and 9th.
I'm open. So right now I'm holding a biweekly call. I know Douglas attends that. Stephen Trainum attends that. I'd be open to any other options.
How does that output get communicated? I guess maybe it's not getting it's not proactively getting communicated that I can tell, at least not on our website. I mean, I don't know, Katie, do
Sounds
you have
like
a
this
different
is on,
opinion?
it sounds like this is on us,
Okay.
more than, I guess, one question though to that is there in the contract with this new dredger, is there a penalty, like time-wise? I mean, is there a limit when they should be done, and if they're
Yeah,
not,
and
what happens?
there's been a penalty on the current contractor, and they had liquidated damages of like $1,200 a day that started back in January of last year, so. I don't know that money's been an incentive for them for some reason.
Is there a termination clause?
There is, and,
I mean, I'm not
yeah,
asking
so-
as much for the past,
Right.
but for the future. I mean, I don't want us to get into another situation where this new contractor is here for the next, this is supposed to take, how long are we planning on the new one to take?
They have 32 days scheduled for beach impacts
Okay.
for this
So,
project.
If 6
So-
months goes by and they're still here, what can we do at that point?
I think just continued communication. I mean, I don't expect that to happen in any way with this contractor. They're high performer. They've already demonstrated great performance on the contract.
Good to know.
They finished the Coast Guard's work early. They went and did some private work for NOAA in the harbor, finished that early, and they're mobilizing to the waterway early. So
Who's this contractor?
They're Cottrell Contracting. They're out of Virginia. And they're a known entity that we have worked with a lot in the past. Very capable contractor.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
One last question. Are you in charge of the spoil islands? Like, is that your,
It is
Area?
under my purview, yeah.
okay. Because we've been discussing, so are you involved with our dredging of the marina and where it's going and things
I
like
have
that?
since gotten involved, yes.
Okay.
I know your consultant has contacted me about permissions to use that Goat Island placement area, so we're working through that.
Okay.
It does
So y'all are in
require, it
the,
does require real estate actions with so all of our real estate actions are done with out of Savannah. And so it's basically some paperwork exercise that needs to happen, so.
but is that y'all's decision where that sand goes? Or that, whatever the.
It's our decision to let third parties
Dredge.
use our placement sites, yes.
Okay. But like which site is used, is that decided by the Corps?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I had heard.
So to even get permission to allow someone, we have to be able to demonstrate that we have 20-plus years of capacity for the entire intercoastal waterway. And the answer used to be no, we didn't. We've since gained on that and can demonstrate that we do have capacity, so we've been allowing some third-party use of those placement areas. There's a fee involved, it's like a tipping fee, I don't remember the number. It's a per cubic yard fee to use those sites.
Okay.
Yep. But yes, I am involved in it.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Jim.
It's happening.
Appreciate the update.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, but before we lose Jacob, in terms of information that we think the public would want to know, and we've talked a little bit about where the impact is intended to be at what dates, and we've talked about that with the existing contractor. And then just kind of general dates in terms of when they will begin. Any other information other than that you think would be useful to
I
broadcast?
think, we've talked about this before. It's publishing a schedule, it's publishing the capacity that is intended. If it's 65,000, how much if you're doing biweekly, you ought to be able to have an update. How much have you delivered? How much is left? Are there any issues? And I think the thing that really is at task here is if there's a change in the schedule, there should be a place where it gets communicated, again, so people know about it instead of having to figure it out. Like if there's a delay, what is that delay? What's causing the delay? When do you expect it to be cured? None of that, I think, has been really overly communicated. And like you said, a 2 or 4 month project goes to 2 years. A lot of this was sort of, I call it the voyage of discovery of what was going on. We had to keep asking the question instead of having somebody tell us what's going on. And it's
So-
not, you may be communicating in your 2-week calls. We're just not seeing it out from there. And that, like I think Katie said, that might just be on us.
So what is, if we kind of Monday morning quarterback the delay, I don't think I get from our calls that it's always crystal clear to you exactly when the sand will kind of get turned back on. So I guess there's a little bit of you're kind of handling the operations, but then when you get into like a work shutdown from a safety protocol, are you a little bit on hold in terms of when they're going to clear it back to,
Yes.
some parts
Part
of
of
the
the
work.
challenge has been unreliable information from our contractor.
I mean,
So
I'm
that-
accustomed to it. Even, if a project's going south on you, even if we don't know or I don't know, but I'm going to find, we're going to know, that's even helpful. Because people are out there just guessing, you take the speculation out of it if you communicate
Right.
But
when you're forthcoming.
would we be able to get to a place where we're not just speculating? And again, kind of Monday morning quarterbacking with
I
Adna,
think
when they would.
with Aetna, we're probably going to have some continued speculation, unfortunately. They are.
I think at the very least, just being told that they're not working this week and we don't know when they're going to work again. So, I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean,
not that
at
that's
this
what
point,
anybody
the-
wants to hear, but being told that as opposed to people just sitting there, looking out there and wondering, gosh, I wonder why nothing's happening. Because anytime that people don't know the answer, they always assume the worst. I mean, that's just the way people's brains work. So the fact, and then when we find out as city council, kind of offhandedly during a meeting, it looks bad on the city. I mean, it just does. And so that's, we need to fix this.
And let me give you a real-
This is not, this has been,
And here's a real-time flow-through, and it's not on you, Jacob, at all, of the Army Corps. So we were told that there was going to be the 350,000 cubic yards of sand that's going to be pumped up on, I guess it was around 3rd, 4th, 5th Avenue. And of that, there were going to be 25 or 40,000 cubic yards were going to be grabbed and pushed back down on Second and, down in the second block. We didn't know that you were having problems. Those folks were looking at their own situation with king tides coming the last few months, and then they're having to try to make a decision, hey, do I have to go out and buy additional sandbags? Do I have to have my own sand brought in? Those are their decision points, but nobody was told that sand wasn't coming, and it didn't come. So a lot of people got hit down on the south end. Not your fault again, but the lack of the communication, if somebody had said, you know what, that sand's not coming. We're going to be delayed, we got a problem with that, and it's safety issues, and we have no idea when they're coming. Those residents and the rental property owners could have made their own decision to fortify their own properties, as opposed to relying on sand that was never going to come, and they didn't know it. So that's kind of where that's what I'm hearing.
I don't know what project you're even referencing.
We
That
had
there would be an additional amount of sand that the city would move?
We were going to take 25,000 cubic yards of sand and move it and do some dune restoration down on the south end.
So that happened almost immediately at the beginning of the process.
And this was another one that was happening just a few months ago that was talked about.
Yeah, that never got
Never got delivered.
approved or
I
authorized.
think it actually, well, we can go back and take a look, but I think that was all communicated. I mean, some of the residents were counting on that sand coming down their way.
Well,
Anyway, again, not on you, but it's that whole, there are ripple effects of what's going on with your project.
Understand.
Yeah.
Our project is not moving sand to any
I know,
dunes.
I know
so-
that. We know that. It's not a
So,
reversion
and-
project.
Yeah, and we have placed, upwards of 350,000 cubic yards within the beach profile already.
Thank you.
So, not sure where that breakdown happened, and I'm open to whatever I could do to communicate better.
yeah,
And again, like I said earlier, I hope you will judge future work by the contract that Cottrell's doing for us, where we'll provide a schedule and they'll stick to the schedule.
Thank you.
So,
All good.
thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
you're
thank you,
welcome.
Jacob.
All right, y'all. Have a good day.
Thank
You
you.
All right, so now, we have discussion of the beach coordination and funding with WDCA. Are we postponing that? Is that what did we decide to?
I don't know, Andrew, you wanna-
Oh, you're here. There you are. Sorry.
maybe should we just talk about the next steps instead of diving into that MOU or? what
Yeah, do you want, Andrew, do you want to come up?
Yeah, come on up.
Sorry, I had thought that we had
It was unclear to me, so I
tabled
showed
this,
up.
so there you are. Well, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm gonna
So
give you a copy of this too.
we have this draft MOU. Do you have a copy of that?
I do, not
Okay.
with me, but I do.
So if you all are okay, if we'll just kind of talk through what we were envisioning would be kind of the next steps, is that okay? And then you all can tell us what
And
you would
this
rather
is-
see?
This is who's envisioning this?
This is the staff.
Okay.
But this is kind of the first step, I think, in any time we've developed an MOU where we will put together kind of a straw man of points that we think are important, get feedback from both parties, from council, from the entity we're wanting to create an agreement with. This was that first step. Really, all this document would do is create the cadence for developing an actual agreement that would, kind of the basis for that agreement going forward. So this was not intended to be the final agreement that we would bind us to how we dealt with this project, but it was really creating the work plan for working together.
Okay.
If there are points that you all would like to add to that or subtract to that, this would be the time to kind of talk that through, or otherwise we would just continue to kind of work through our normal process with developing an MOU.
Yeah, I guess where I am is I thought we talked about, we were going to kind of define what it is we're trying to solve for. I'm not sure that MOU is a little different and a little confusing to me. I'm not sure, first of all, we've got the cost side of things on how much this project's going to actually cost us. And I think we really need to define, or all kind of agree, it may move, but we've got some parameters that I think have been communicated based on the mobilization cost and the cost for the sand, and then also for the soft costs. Those three components are, I think, fairly well identifiable for us to shoot at. I don't know, would you agree with that, Andrew? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen firm costs. I don't think any of us have. But yeah, I think those are three factors into the costing model.
Yep. And then the timing of that, I think we've got to identify the ones that I've seen so far that have been the most recent was we just, I guess we've authorized the contract for Steve, right? That's the roughly $700,000, and I think that's I think we had budgeted 575, so we're, I don't know, 20% or so off budget on that one. We've got the sand mobilization cost of $5 million, and the latest that I've seen was the 1.76 million cubic yards of sand. That was the estimate at $15. So if we add all that up, we've got 31.4 million for the project, and then another 750,000 or so for the soft costs. So that puts us right at a little over $32 million. So I think those are the costs that we're trying to divvy up, or we got to agree, are we divvying those costs up? There's that prior cost of the permits and all, I think those are done. Mm-hmm. But on a go-forward basis, how much are we going to split, what's going to be in, what's going to be out? And then how is that going to occur, indemnifications, escrows, all of that I think needs to be addressed. And who's going to, I think we've also got to go back and we've got fresh information, validate, how are these splits going to occur? I think we've talked initially about based on the ATAX revenues. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I think we all agree that's a good starting point, the
Might be,
55,
yeah.
45.
Yeah. And if you look historically, I think if you look at that sheet there, one of the things I think we've got to look at is, the city has historically put in about 16% of the total cost of the projects. And I think what we're really asking the city to do, and I think Wild Dunes has been about 50%, we're asking the city to, since we don't have any additional funding from elsewhere, that the city's going to be making up the delta between all of the lost, sources either from FEMA or from Charleston County or from the state. And, I think we probably also need to put a really hard pursuit on trying to get some of that money back into the system here so that we don't, Wild Dunes and us doesn't have to foot the whole bill. I don't know, any thoughts on that at all?
I mean, that'd be nice, but I think for this project, we have to, hope for the best and plan for the worst, and that's unfortunately going to be.
What is the status of the 1.5 at the state level?
That's been requested.
Yeah, my understanding is that we're going to get that money. That's the, 1.5 million. But I think from the
So that
city's.
takes us to 30,500,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a sad subtraction. I mean, it's great. I don't say we don't want it, but it doesn't.
And then I don't know if
Compared to
there
what's
are.
gotten in the past.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if there are any restrictions on how that money can or can't be used. So,
I don't
and
think it can be used. I don't think it can be used. What, half a mile?
Private.
Can't
Right.
be used north of Beechwood East,
Yep.
Okay,
about the middle of Beechwood East.
yeah. And I think from our standpoint, and Andrew, I don't know that you're necessarily got to be heavily involved in this, but we've got to model out on our side for the city, if we're using these as the anchor for the funding over time here, and now we're pulling it in from maybe a 27 fiscal budget to the 26 fiscal budget, we've also, our beach funding, I think, was 10 or 11 million. I think it's probably 11 plus now at the audit. And we're going to have if we're going to continue with doing any emergency funding, that's going to put some pressures on, we've spent 6 million out of that bucket in the last 2 years. I think we've got to model out how this scenario is going to impact not just the beach fund, but, do we go beyond the beach fund? Do we not go beyond the beach fund on the splits? Is it going to impact all of our other funding balances? Along with all the other pressures that we've got from either, the salary out of cycle of treatment. We've got the waterway project, which is $6 million. We've got to look at that internally here to find out, what is that's going to do to our city coffers. And I don't think that we've done that. I don't know that we've done that yet, have we, Deborah?
We haven't done it into the detail that you just addressed. We do have some projections of how the city will land, once this project is done. Of course, the Beach Preservation Fund does not currently have enough, so even with Wild Dunes contribution, some of that funding will have to come from other allocated from other funds. So we'll need to put something together to actually outlay all of the costs that the city is currently projecting. But we do have it on, not as detailed, but kind of on a big picture scale.
Okay, is that something that maybe we can work on between now and January?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I think, again, from our standpoint, we've got to take it in the context of all the other pressures we've got on the budget, not just the beach project that's going to hit our
Yes.
fund balances.
Right.
So when
Payroll
we say
included
that
in-
the Beach Preservation Fund has, let's just call it 10 million, is that for the Isle of Palms portion of it, does that mean that we have 5,500,000 and Wild Dunes has 4 million? I mean, if, going back to the fact that Wild Dunes pays, based on ATAX, 45% of the beach fund is money that Wild Dunes has contributed, correct?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
the
right?
opposite. They'd pay 55%, and we'd pay the 45.
We've
Yes.
contributed 45% ATAX.
That's, yes. So that means that beach, of that $10 million, 45% of that has been contributed by Wild Dunes, correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay, so when we talk about contributions, and we have a $30 million goal, and if the city's, let's just use 50% and 50%, just to make the math easy.
Yes.
So we're talking $15 million from the city and $15 million from Wild Dunes. The Beach Renourishment Fund, the City of Isle of Palms portion of it is roughly $5 million, and Wild Dunes portion is roughly $5 million. So that leaves $10 million from the city and $10 million from Wild Dunes in order to fill this bucket.
I don't think you look at it that way. Wild Dunes is only responsible for the portion of the beach renourishment within Wild Dunes.
Okay, right. Yeah, I
The
understand,
30
sorry.
30
Right,
includes
that's-
that.
yes.
That's the 1.2 million
Yes.
cubic yards.
Right. So, but when we look at the whole bucket, so you guys are closer to filling your portion, but we still are looking to, I guess my point is, we talk about the Beach Renourishment Fund and as a city, and we say $10 million, but we don't have $10 million because we're sharing that money. Basically, when Wild Dunes is going to pay their portion, it's going to come out of that $10 million.
So
Yeah,
Katie, I would say we do have the full 10 million. And this is kind of the philosophical question that I think you're getting at, which is a good one, is the city, and the city has talked about a 45-55 split. Are we talking about a 45-55 split of what's in the beach fund and has been pulled in? Or are we talking about, because that's one number, and we've kind of been talking internally about what that, it's $4.5 million left. Is that the kind of limit of what the city is willing to participate in the Wild Dunes portion of the project? Or is it 45% of the total cost, which goes well in excess of what's been collected from within Wild Dunes and deposited to the Beach Preservation Fund? So that's going to be a question for the council, is what do we mean when we say a 45-55 split? Is it the fund? Is it the total project? So that's a question that we have and remains to be worked through by the city.
Yeah, and I think to use some of the round numbers, so if we got let's say it's a $30 million project, and two-thirds of the project's in Wild Dunes, so it's 20 million Wild Dunes and we're on our own for the 10 million on the south.
Okay.
And then if we did
So then for this conversation, let's talk about this as a $20 million project, not a $30 million.
All right.
Is that fair?
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
but then,
Of that 20 million, Wild Dunes is expecting the 55% cost as a starting point. That's
Okay.
what we've shared.
so that's,
But to your point, Katie, that's well, if that would put 45% on the city, which is well in excess of what's actually been collected into the Beach Preservation Fund from
let's say,
Wild Dunes.
so for Wild Dunes is roughly $10 million contribution.
Yeah, so then the city's left with 20.
But for
Yeah,
for the $10 million contribution, though, that money, when Wild Dunes writes a check for $10 million, that money is coming from where? Is part of that money, this is my question, is part of that money coming from the Beach Preservation Fund?
No,
No.
no, our contribution, the
Okay.
city's contribution would be from that Beach
From the fund.
Preservation.
So the fund is ours.
Correct.
Right, and I think that, again, maybe simpler math, if we did a 45-55 split on the 20 million, Wild Dunes would put up 11, the city'd put up 9. And if we did 45% just out of the beach fund, then Wild Dunes would put up 15.5 and we'd put up 4.5
Correct.
in rough numbers. So the delta's there, it's a roughly $5 million number that we're talking about. So, and I think that all's got to be talked about, but then beyond just the numbers, and I think, if we know those parameters, we can plan for those scenarios. What are the logistics here on the update on, when is this actually going to occur so that we can all get in front of it and plan for it?
Yeah, that was some of my questions. I mean, I think last meeting we discussed, once new council was seated, is when we would start the discussions with the MOU. I think you had suggested that, Scott.
Yeah.
And then I kind of heard earlier an update on the permit status, and I think anything else to share.
No,
I don't know if we know
we're
anything,
planning
do we?
as though it could happen as early as I think that is the absolute soonest that it could possibly happen. Probably later is more likely, but we're kind of planning as though it could so we want to have our ducks in a row by April.
And has there been any change on contractor availability in the last 30 days?
Not that I'm aware of.
And it's also from my understanding, if it's not April 1st, it could be May 1st, it could be June 1st. There's
That's
not
correct.
a point you would punt to the winter of 2026. You would do it as soon as you get the permits in
I
place.
think that would be the
think
preference,
that-
don't you think? Yeah, wouldn't you want that? I
I
mean, that's what we all
absolutely.
want that.
I think
yeah.
you all got to be aware of the
Yeah.
impact of the summer tourist season.
Yeah.
And to me, that's all around communications. To your point earlier, with the Army Corps is,
I know of a dredger that'll probably be available.
I'm not sure we want to use that one, but
Sorry. But no.
I mean, communications to the
that-
residents.
yes, that's gonna
Short-term
be-
rental property managers,
It's going to be huge. But
because a lot of people, I'm sure, book when they finish this summer, past summer, they book for next summer
Yep.
already.
but right now, I mean, it's not, I would have a hard time, I mean, some of those properties, if you rented a property and got there and found out that there was,
Nobody.
Get their proposals back, and council will make a decision as to who to engage potentially to do those. So those balls are in motion, but
As far as
No update.
parallel efforts, Andrew, would you do you think the WDCA would be open to, accelerating those kinds of efforts, not necessarily making them dependent on the current beach renourishment, but get this stuff going as fast as we can?
I think so, if it
Yeah.
would benefit the beaches within Wild Dunes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll have to understand what they're actually looking at doing, and what potential changes it has to the dynamics of the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that, as soon as we get,
I think we'll know the makeup of the next year's, committees and things like that pretty quickly. I think we got a meeting on the 9th, so.
So as far as the MOU, I mean, I've certainly read it, and I've shared it with our board chair, but it hasn't gone anywhere else. We anticipate meeting next week internally to go through it, and then eventually share it with our legal counsel.
so what do you need from us, timeline-wise? I mean, what do you, what's your best-case scenario?
I would think we would be ready to either come back with a red line or some comments or discussion sometime in January, early January. I don't know when your next meeting is.
Yeah, my thought on this, Andrew, and I mean, I've read through this, I think the MOU as written needs a lot of work before it even goes to a red line. And I think we'd want to get probably, I don't know, maybe some additional input to it before it goes to a red line, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, like I said, we'll meet I believe we're meeting next week to discuss.
Okay.
And should cover
Would it-
response to you next week, Douglas.
Would maybe and I'm kind of hearing the comments, maybe, and knowing that what is in the packet was not intended to be the agreement that governs, it really was a work cadence for the two agencies to kind of share information and work towards an agreement. Maybe this is a staff level document that we just kind of commit to work together, share information. It kind of outlines the general kind of things that we think will be analyzed, but it acknowledges that none of that's been developed yet. Maybe we don't focus on this document, agree to a work cadence to working together, and actually create what will be an agreement, kind of an
I think
escrow
what-
agreement.
Yeah, I think what would be helpful is to say, hey, what are the things we need to put in the agreement? Is it, the cost share is a subject that we need
Yep.
to fill in? Instead of, the language that we have in here is quite interesting and is definitely not, I think you said it hasn't been reviewed by legal. But, whether it's the cost sharing, whether it's the cadence on the escrow and the payments, whether who's going to indemnify who's going to be responsible for the contractor. I think topically, the components of the MOU would be best addressed as opposed to the actual wording that we've got in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's what it was intended to do, was just to say, well, these are the things we will work through. How's the escrow handled? What's the split? Who's going to control the contractor? Who's going to control the bidding? Once we get bids back, what will the process be of you guys being comfortable with the bidder? So those are kind of, that, again, it was a
Because
it's a straw man.
city's going to be on the hook for the contractor for all in, right?
The way it's contemplated is the city would have the contract with the contractor. So we would be the lead agency, kind of the controlling agency.
That's what was done in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of this
no-
is just
no
how-
issue there.
We have no
It's just-
jurisdiction
yeah,
on the beach.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think we are anticipating kind of identifying what you all think are key components, and cost share, indemnification, escrow. I mean, those are excellent points and things that we would work into the final agreement. Anything else that jumps out at you? And Scott, you've identified just internal work that you think the city needs to do to
Yeah,
get to
it's
a
kind of
point
on our side, yeah.
of knowing what that contribution level is. So I think that's some work we need to do on our side. Anything else that you want kind of,
I think communication should be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, yeah. And pursuit of, well, what happens if we can get some other money? I don't want to give up on getting more money from someplace. I mean,
I would
yeah,
say that's-
you look at this sheet here, and we're being left high and dry here on this project.
well, so the way that we've kind of thought about that is that additional money would take from the city side. So, and that's the way that doesn't diminish the Wild Dunes contribution. It would be, so we have asked for the $1.5 million currently, and we've asked for an additional, I think we've asked for a total of $5 million from the state. But we would anticipate that would come off of our side of the ledger and not theirs.
Basically up to that, just south of Beechwood, which you said earlier.
Yes. Yep,
Nothing north of Beechwood East.
correct.
Now, was there some change in the wording in the legislation in the last couple of years that would allow a little bit more flexibility in funding up into the wild, up there? in Wild
Not that
Dunes?
I'm aware of.
I thought maybe there had been a little bit of language change, but the other option, and this is longer term, Andrew, for longer term funding, is there still any conversation about the, 31 parking spots or so to allow for some public funding? Or that's enough?
We're opening to discussing that. That we would potentially begin discussions next year.
Yeah, that issue has the potential of coming to a head with our request to the Army Corps to also consider that area as being a federal project. Consider that area as being a federal project. We kind of knew when we made that request that, and that request is in to look at Wild Dunes and the feasibility of it being a federal project, but we know that they won't consider it a federal project unless it is qualified as an open and accessible beach. So it will come to a head before our next major renourishment, probably in 2 years, that if the funding gets approved to look at that area, probably be in the next 2 years. But the community will have a decision point there as to whether or not it's worth being a federal beach or not.
And I know I sound like a broken record, but from the lobbyist perspective, to continue to push to see if beach preservation tax could be put in place in all overnight lodging to support beach renourishment. I know I've done this before. Hilton Head did it years ago, and it's part of it.
percent.
It's an additional.
Additional 1% A tax,
They have
anything.
They have a 2% beach preservation fee on top of a tax
In Hilton Head.
in Hilton.
Yeah, we
They
have
also have real
1%.
estate transfer.
They also have a real estate transfer, but that does nothing to do with the beach. The beach preservation fee, the 2%, covers their beach projects in their entirety. There's no private contributions from any of the gated communities.
Yeah, our lobbyists aren't currently working on that, I know that. That's a.
And that'd be a game
that-
changer
that-
for both of us.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
I agree. So you're saying the 2%'s on top of the 2% that's already on there? Yeah.
Like, they have a separate 2%.
So there's 16% total.
I think they're 14.
They're an additional 1%, they're twice the beach preservation fee that we are. We're 1%, they're 2%. And that's driven by a change in state law between when they established their 2%.
But we had the option to do 2, and we did 1, I think. Didn't all the municipalities have the option to do 2, and 2 of the 14? And I think Isle of Palm selected 1 historically.
we-
And you said Hilton Head went 2.
So we could take our full 2 and dedicate it to the beach, but we can't charge an additional
extra.
percent, which is what Hilton Head does.
Well, that's why I'm asking. If you're charging an extra 2%, then your tax would be 14%, 16%, not 14% in Hilton Head.
They're an additional 1.
So it's 15%. Can we?
I don't know what
Can we
they're-
find that out?
Yeah,
Actually,
we
that's a
can.
good,
I'll
that's
reach-
good, that would be good information to know.
Yeah, it's an additional 1 into their beach preservation fund, but we can, I don't know what their total break, they might not have some other percent.
So I think the question, Andrew, is are they charging 14, 15, or 16%? And of the if it's 14, is it 2 going to the beach fund, which all municipalities had that option? We chose 1, maybe Hilton Head did 2, or are they charging an extra point on top of it?
I'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah, we have that, but we can share that. And that is something that the lobbyists are working on, the state lobbyists. I think they've told us they don't see a bright path forward for that, but they've been tasked with additional money for sand at the state level.
And I think we'd have a hard time allocating another point since we spend that tax on
That's-
a lot of other things.
Yeah, we have that ability, but it's, to your point, it's not practical for us to dedicate another point of hours that we're already taking, but a new percent would be helpful.
So for the next meeting, we're going to have hopefully have all the identified components that are going to go into an MOU. We'll have the finance projections done, or at least some preliminaries. And I think we kind of, at least for now, until Steve tells us differently, we're going to, or somebody tells us differently, we're going to use that 32 million rough number for the all-in for our projections. And that's going to, I'm sure that'll be subject to change. And then, Andrew, I think we want to propose some kind of a communication clause or plan or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's more of a plan than a clause.
And that's part of that MOU has kind of what we would anticipate, and it's basically a weekly meeting between the staffs and,
Yeah, but it's more the outward communication to the residents and the visitors.
is that what you're referencing, or you're talking about the internal communication?
I think it's just like what we talked about with the Army Corps. We've got to have a really, I look at the Hilton Head website, and I look at all the other project websites up and down North Carolina, South Carolina, and the communication is just extremely robust. I mean, there's no worrying about what's going on. I mean, you can just go out there and find out, and it's an outward communication. And I
Okay,
think we
so-
ought to mimic. It's already been built elsewhere. I mean, it's not that hard to
yeah.
do. And I don't know if does the contractor do that, or is that the city doing that?
The town, I believe the town
Town's doing
Hilton Head
it,
does
yeah.
it. I mean, they get their information from the contractor, but, I mean, obviously, their staff is much larger than
Yeah.
the city of Isle Palms, but, yeah. I mean, I get the weekly e-blast
I
from
mean,
the
even if we had a
town.
temporary outsource or, get some resource on to do that, I think it would be great for the,
Yeah, it's very timely and
beachgoers.
robust. I mean, their website's really built up, is how much information and data is available.
did you get all those, Nicole? Oh, yeah, there it is.
When is your next meeting?
Nicole, when is our next meeting?
Well, the first Tuesday of January is when new council members are installed, all that sort of stuff takes place. And so technically, and then the voting of those sorts of placements and committees and appointments and all sort of thing happens at that meeting as well on January. So the first Tuesday would be normally when we have committee meetings.
But the
So I
committee
don't
will be
know.
established that Tuesday.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have it that first Tuesday. I guess if we wanted to, there would be a possibility of planning something for the second Tuesday, which would still then be ahead of the workshop. But then whatever is worked on at that meeting isn't on the, you know what I'm saying, wouldn't be on the agenda specifically for the workshop. We still have to work out with the mayor how we're gonna handle workshop and city council, since city council is scheduled for during the beach advocates meeting now. None of the decisions have been made about that. So I think there's a lot of things that are up in the air. You know, there's a possibility if you wanted to, have committee meetings on Wednesday, that first Wednesday, if that was important. I don't know when the retreat, if there's gonna be one, when the retreat's gonna happen. So I feel like there's a lot of things we gotta work out before we can set a date.
Can we
Unless-
placehold the second Tuesday for whoever, and then whoever's on that committee can decide? Are you
So
okay
that
with that,
would be the
Katie? or-
13th.
I just wrote down the 13th.
You okay with that?
That would help us internally.
Yeah.
Let's tentatively say January 13th at 9. That works for everybody.
Just committee meeting
January.
once a month or twice a month?
Once a month.
Can meet more if we need to.
Yeah. January 13th.
Yes.
Later that month is the beach advocates,
2 weeks after that.
2 weeks after.
The annual meeting?
The annual meeting down at Hilton Head, I think. And that was towards the latter part of January.
That's usually like on my birthday. Okay. Anything else?
You were saying April 1st. You saying construction starting April 1st, like having, going out to bid April 1st?
Construction starting.
Okay.
Again, that is if everything happened to the day as quickly as it could happen, so that's kind of our plan, but I think that's I think we know that's aggressive. To what degree it's aggressive, I don't know, but that's kind of the work plan is to be ready April 1st,
We have,
but knowing it's gonna slide some amount.
Could we put Steve on the, he can call in or whatever, but I think it would be helpful to get a really firm update on where we are with all those permits and everything and the bid schedule and all that. Wouldn't you?
oh, yeah, that'd be really.
Let's do that up for whoever's
Yeah.
on the committee for the 13th, if that's,
I mean, do you think you'll have
I don't wanna
any
schedule
indication
for
by the end of
whoever's
this
in.
year where the permits?
I think
stand?
you'll have, yes, I think after this public comment period ends this week, I think he'll know.
we
I
can
think he'll
send
have
out a
better-
communication after that. Yeah. This week is, you said it sunsets?
I believe it's the end of this week. We'll know the level of public comment received.
Okay. Regardless, maybe put him on the calendar for the
Yeah.
13th. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll,
If we get anything update before then, that'd be great.
yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you, Andrew.
Yes, thank you.
Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
That was good.
Appreciate it.
Progress.
Have a good Christmas, New Year if I don't see y'all.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Can't believe we're already talking about Christmas. All right, next steps for the marina parking lot. So I know we've heard from the restaurant and that they would like to have solid surface drive areas. The numbers that we have, cost-wise, is that coming from, like, if we had a contractor,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
and,
it's not a bid. We're having True Luck Construction, who just wrapped up the first phase of that waterway path.
right.
And they're in the paving, concrete, drainage industry.
right,
So they're giving very, rough orders of magnitude of what they think each of these kind of versions
So-
would cost. So it's very much a guess.
have they, like, looked at it, though, and the area that is concrete or asphalt right now, is that salvageable? Can you put something on top of that to make it better? Like, I was down there over the weekend, I was looking at it, I mean, there's already a very large amount of, I don't know if it's concrete or asphalt, whatever that surface is.
Asphalt.
It's obviously old, but, I feel like when they redid my street in my old neighborhood, like, they didn't tear out the whole entire street, they put something over the top of it. Like, to me, it seems like, and I might be wrong, as I am not a horizontal construction contractor, I don't have any idea, but maybe it's cheaper to just tear it out and start over. But would it be easier, cheaper, whatever, to try to salvage what's there? Because there's a lot. Is that something that they've addressed?
They haven't specifically said what the price difference would be from, I don't think it would be this is my opinion, but I don't think it would be a noticeable difference either way. I don't
Well,
think it would
my
be a
other
great
thought on
savings.
that is that, does it make a difference with the whole engineering? Because if we weren't increasing, because the engineering comes in if we're increasing hard surface, right?
I think the engineering comes in if it's anything other than just kind of wall-to-wall gravel. Because you do, if we're gonna get into a concrete edging ribbon, that has to be laid out on they all get these kind of CAD systems. So I think to varying degrees, we're gonna have spread gravel.
Okay, but permitting is what we
So-
would get into at some point with
That's
hard
correct.
surfacing.
So the, one of the goals would be, if we were to, and to kind of get us back up to speed, the restaurant has indicated that they are wanting at least the drive aisles for the delivery trucks to be done out of out of asphalt. So in our kind of menu of pricing, that would be the bottom one, asphalt roads plus gravel parking at $350,000. A key part of that would be to figure out if the asphalt that would be needed to be added could be less than the asphalt that's there to make it a net no change of impervious surfacing. And we've done just kind of rough sketches, and we think it's very close. We think there's about 20,000 square feet of existing asphalt, and we think there's about 17,000 that would be needed for a ring road. So if that was a goalpost that we needed to meet for permitting, I think we could do it and stay under it for the permitting process.
Because that will
But-
make, I mean, that does make it considerably easier, right? And,
If you don't have a permit,
right.
yeah, I mean.
I mean, or
this is
does it
not-
matter?
This is not a, like a new outfall permit. It is a permit that's similar to any commercial project, any parking lot. They get this. So it's the lower tier of
Okay.
permitting than the ones that we're used to, where we're doing new pipes into the marsh and that type of stuff. So it is a little bit more complicated. It probably would add 2 or 3 months to the project. If we needed to have an engineer anyway, which I think we're kind of heading that way, if we're gonna do roadway, again, kind of anything other than just wall-to-wall gravel, we'll have some level of engineering there, so I don't think that it would be an insurmountable task if we wanted to not be beholden to keeping the same impervious surfacing. It's just time and some additional expense.
Just minor detail, and I think we got some email on this. Should we consider in the drawing too, some kind of a hard surface or what have you, so that the folks in an ADA parking spot can
Yes.
navigate to either the restaurant or to the dock or to the public dock?
Yeah, that will have to be.
Okay.
They have to, the spaces shown as ADA spaces have to be hard surfacing of some
Okay,
type.
great, thank you. And the access to the
And the connecting points from those parking spaces to
wherever.
wherever
Yeah.
they're going, yes.
Okay.
That has to be a firm, can't be over loose gravel.
Yeah.
So what would the next steps be here, Katie, from your perspective?
So, I mean, do we move forward with this? I mean, does that?
Price
does-
that out?
Does that
Or get a
sound?
ballpark price on that?
So that estimate would be
That's the 350?
350,000 if we wanted to add edging, kind of the ball fields, Katie, that you've looked at. That would be an additional 50 to the 350. And none of those include engineering, which would be roughly another 50. So that is, to our best guess, about a $450,000 project.
And then the information that we had from Deborah about the money, like where this money is coming from, I think, what was it, 200? Thank you, Sheila. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
about
270,000 last year was our, like,
That was the
Overage.
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 so
yeah.
like, so we have, the way we do the rent with the restaurant, which is different from the rest of the marina, is that we have a base rent, and then that base rent has a overage based on how much money they're making, right?
That's correct.
An escalator, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the 270 is the amount over their base rent, right?
Per year, that's
And that
correct.
was the last year's,
Yeah.
was, yeah. So, I mean, if we look at that, as a way of paying for this.
Would it be possible to get with the restaurant owners, and I don't know in what kind of a forum, but maybe have a conversation about some potential sharing or on the cost side of things, kind of figure out a way to, maybe everybody's got some,
We can certainly have them. I can tell you that we've had, just conversations, and they've not indicated a willingness to share in the expense. But certainly could request that they come to the next committee meeting and talk to you all about that, or talk to the future committee, but they.
Well,
they
if
made
it was, maybe if it was a percentage of their overage or some, some portion of that overage that we,
Trying to figure out a way how to allocate.
yeah.
Yeah, that's been their suggestion to us, is where I think they feel like they're sharing by paying the overage that's required in the lease, but I think that's that would be their suggestion of how they think the city should pay for it.
And those numbers escalate in another year or two, I think, because the threshold drops, so the city's going to get more money, I think. I don't know if Deborah modeled that out either, but I think that, the threshold drops, so we're going to get more overage.
I think she said it was looking like it was going to be less this year, but that might just be based on,
I think the threshold of the gross revenue drops by, I want to say $1 million or so, so we end up sharing in another bucket.
Right.
Yeah, the threshold goes down, so we're going to get more of the increase.
she just said for the current year, the amount is slightly lower,
Yeah.
not the percentages or anything. And then also, I think this was in the email or somewhere, but once this is done, and this is another, I think, kind of important factor for us to look at for, justifying paying this. Once this is done, and we get this separation and the lease rewritten, the restaurant's parking is
They're
theirs
on their own.
Yes, in terms of maintenance.
for the,
and
for
it would
the
be in their
existence
lease.
of the lease.
That's correct. They've indicated a willingness to do that.
And does this fund the full green space at the dock, or
Does this?
fund the whole green
No,
space? Okay.
No, this is only parking
Parking
space.
spot.
So to Katie's point, this is really, the kind of sticking point in this project is a lease amendment. I mean, and that's really the only thing we're not going out to bid, we haven't fully designed anything, so this is really the first step, with the end goal of this part of the process being a lease amendment, and we'd have to get through that successfully. If we're able to get through and amending the lease, that would then give us the real estate that we would kind of want and need to make the rest of these changes. But they've indicated that they would not be willing to amend the lease
Until we get this resolved.
unless we can get this resolved. So again, it's a lot of parts to the chain of events, and this is really the first of those many parts. But I think council would, so for this committee, at this point, there would be a recommendation whether you will think it's in the city's best interest to spend, appears to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,000 in an effort to make the lease amendment possible. And it may be that you're not there and ready to make a recommendation, but that's kind of the thing that we're working towards now at this point is some indication and some feedback on whether that amount is justified to do the lease amendment.
Well, it sounds like that's what's going to be required, don't you think? Yeah. And
Do we know what the marina paid for when they did their side of the?
I do not know full end right now.
60-something. Yeah.
60?
I thought it was in the 60s, or maybe
thought-
it was higher than that.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
was
it
higher than
was.
that.
I
Had
think
to
it
have
was-
Maybe that was, I think there were two components of it. There's the marina and there's the outpost.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were two components.
They had
I mean, because that parking lot is bigger than this one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about to pay, what their cost for their parking?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
different. I thought you were
Yeah,
talking
no, I'm talking
deliveries.
about, what they paid. I mean, because,
I
mean-
think it's well in
Mike would tell
excess
us.
of what we're talking
It-
about here.
okay.
I believe, I can verify that.
okay, because feels like it should be.
Yeah, I think it,
Okay.
pretty sure it was
Can we
well in
just,
excess.
can we
of
just
that.
ask Deborah to maybe tell us with the threshold dropping, when does it drop and what might be even if we just had steady volume, what would the projected revenues be on the overage?
Yes, we can get that.
don't know.
So do you all, I guess the point at this meeting is this is probably the last, the last meeting of this committee. Do you want, I could see the committee going either way. Either you delay a recommendation and kind of leave it for the next committee.
I'd like to get, like, the most kind of solid numbers that we could get for that drawing that we have.
I don't think we're going to get
I mean,
any more
that,
solid
okay,
than
so we
450.
have 450 is it.
Yeah, well,
I
that
mean-
is the
I
best.
mean, that's-
Before we get it fully engineered and out to bid, there's no way to get a more solid number than
Okay.
that.
I'd like to see, is there, I mean, I don't know if you're open to this, Katie, but maybe just have one more quick conversation with the restaurant owners about this. See if there's anything. Let's kind of lock it down before we put the recommendation up to council. It's your call.
Yeah, I mean, that, and I still feel like there's so much solid surface down there right now. Like, I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can use what's there.
So we know the exact square footage of it. We do have that
Of the-
from Klein.
The
We have
asphalt.
that information, yeah. Just a
Um,
question of if you were to save that and reconstitute it, does it change the numbers in the memo at all?
Yeah, well, and, I mean, it looks like the drive aisles are, aside from that, it's mostly in the part that's already asphalt. Like, most of this red, at least half of it, is already asphalt. Because there's the T-dock. Where the T-dock comes in is right where the asphalt ends, because that's where that little,
So it really would be the drive aisle portion that's adjacent to the restaurant, and you can kind of see, and maybe you can see it there, but the drive aisle closest to the
right,
restaurant is pretty
asphalt.
much existing asphalt. There's about half up here, half closest to the boardwalk, and then the rest of it would be, so, yeah, about half of it, I think.
Yeah.
About half of it's over existing.
So I'm just wondering if resurfacing that and then adding some more would, to me, it seems like that would be considerably less expensive than taking out what's already there. I mean,
And
because
redoing the whole thing.
just removing stuff like that, I mean, that there's cost in the demo of that and everything else, but maybe it's just easier for them to get in there and just take it all out and start over. I don't know. But it does seem like there's a lot of asphalt down there to begin with.
Yeah. There is.
If we could use it and resurface it.
Okay.
But other than that, I feel like we're kind of at we're very close. I mean,
A couple more data points and
yeah,
send it on up.
some numbers to go by, and then, I mean, the overage numbers, and then the numbers on that, and
Saving
then,
asphalt.
so, I mean, but I feel like it probably makes more sense to, I mean, we're not gonna get this done in this off-season, are we?
No.
I don't think-
Unless it was, the kind of going in theory on that was if it was wall-to-wall gravel, possibly, but I think we've kind of moved beyond that and we're into something more than that. So I think that, that change kind of by default puts it into next.
Right, so I don't think
next
there's,
winter. So we'll,
yeah, I don't,
Hold that for
in
next
in
week.
that, due to that, I don't think there's a huge sense of urgency, so I would say it would make more sense to wait until first of the year.
okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. No, it does.
Until we get a committee with a third committee member?
Yeah.
Kind of thought that Blair might join us for the last one, but I guess not. anyway. All right, well. Would it be helpful, or is this just muddying the waters to get a numbers, estimates on the green space too?
Well, we do have.
Or is that
we-
just making
We
things?
do have a very rough estimate in our existing budget. I think it's 90,000
Okay.
that we've kind of contemplated, but we'll add that to the list of,
I mean, I'm just thinking if we're going to take this to full council, that to have some sort
the
of
whole-
like,
do the
this
whole
is our
smash.
Yeah.
pretty little in a bow package.
yeah, I think,
And one is contingent on the other.
Yeah.
yeah.
And maybe, yeah, just take a look at that 90, see if that's still valid. Yeah, because that's been a while.
I think that's been deemed kind of separate from the dealing on the lease.
Yeah.
That would always be on us, so I think we've, kind of separated that out, but we can,
I'm just
While we're
thinking.
getting pricing,
Yeah,
it
just
makes
as a talking,
Yeah.
And we'll need it for the budget next year anyway.
and getting the full concept of what we'd be looking at the end of the, if we spent this much money at the end
Yeah.
of the day, this is what we'd end
Yeah,
up with.
we are looking at kind of what appears to be about 450 plus the 90, so to your point, it would be better to kind of explain that as a package.
Yeah.
instead of
Go to the
two-
well once.
Two
Yeah.
distinct projects. And we would probably bid it all together as well.
Is that something, is the, I'm blanking on the name, the contractor,
True Luck?
True Luck, is that something would they do that kind of stuff too?
Yeah, and I guess the point, the challenge there is that the park hasn't been really designed other than kind of Matt
Conceptually,
Klein putting
yeah.
8 palm trees, which
Right.
are
Kelly
$250.
had done the original, didn't she?
Yeah.
Legacy?
Not at this shape, or, I mean, it's kind of been changing steadily. So he has some picnic tables, some palm trees, and some sod, which would be kind of way less than 90,000. So
The
we just
basic.
assume that there would be, something added to the design, but it has yet to be designed. So the whatever is in the budget, if it's 90,000, it also was a kind of placeholder.
Placeholder, yeah.
Not
Well,
based
I guess
on
I'm just
design.
thinking that would be, if that's something that True Luck, would be interested in doing the whole thing, we might end up saving a couple bucks here or
Yeah.
there.
Is it something even to ask Kelly and to say, hey, does this even smell like in the ballpark for a nice park down there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she'd offer to help out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work on refining whatever's in the budget for the green space as well.
Okay, cool. I think that sounds good. Anything else? Oopsie, just close that down. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Good on that one for now.
In that case, Waterway Boulevard, one more thing.
Yep, so on this project, we have closed out the first phase. That work is complete. You will recall that we have the second phase that is anticipated to begin, beginning of January. So we are, Thomas and Hutton was authorized to, and that work is underway. We still have been trying to get, so the pinch point unable to give us a read on if and when an extension to that deadline considered or heard. So we're working on that. We're pushing for that extension, but in the meantime, we're trying to get the bidding documents out on the street to have bids back by January to be able to, still would be a very short window for them to actually get $1 million of work done. So we're working on that. Part of the critical path on that project was the permits from the land disturbance permits from the state and the encroachment permits from the highway department. We got on Wednesday the land disturbance permit. The only thing hanging the encroachment permit that we're aware of was that land disturbance permit. They should now kind of both fall together. So that really from us putting the work out on the streets is the last bit of bit of information we needed. So that should be happening, within the next week or two, those documents going out, and hoping that we would have bids back for council to consider at that first meeting in January. So it's progressing, things are happening, but kind of seems like with all these things, they have a looming pinch point that's out there and haven't been able to get any movement on
Douglas,
that extension.
If the bids are presented to council at the end of January, how do we make?
Beginning of January.
Oh, beginning, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Hence the short window.
Short window,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll get, I
But
think.
we have everything the city has everything that they need in order to get the bids out. I mean,
We don't have the encroachment
But,
permit
like,
yet, but we
it's all-
think that it's imminent.
yeah, so as soon as we get that, we put those out.
Yeah, and we're working on that, getting that compiled to get it out, assuming it's happening any day now.
And is this the type of bid that you think will get activity, like people?
I hope so. Yeah,
Okay.
I do think this is a much more standard project. We are having conversations with Thomas and Hutton about this potential oddity of needing to get $1 million of work into the ground quickly. That is one of those things that people see that, and that could have kind of a spooking effect. So in a perfect world, we would have that extension, and it would make it a very standard project, very standard bids, plenty of bidders interested. With that looming issue out there, it's adding complexity and challenges that always kind of make it more challenging to get good pricing, so.
So those grant, or that grant, as I recall, was sort of you're reimbursed as you spend.
Correct.
So I'm guessing it's not an all or nothing. I mean, if you spend 700,000, do we get 700,000, or it's not you have to use we want to use every bit of it.
Yes.
But, yeah.
You're correct. And we're having the discussions with the grant administrator of, could we kind of have the material, where are they going to draw the hard line? Could we have the materials on site? A lot of it is drainage piping. Could that get
Right.
ordered,
Just because you haven't actually
delivered?
installed it, if it's sitting there waiting to go in the ground.
Yeah, so it makes it, all of that makes it slightly hinky and slightly, but we're working through that, hoping that doesn't come to pass, but we're planning on it and trying to get it organized so that we're trying to anticipate it and do our best to get the full amount of money reimbursed.
Is it, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, if there was some sort of, for putting these bids out with that kind of a little bit scary,
Yeah.
is there a way of doing that to make it more of an incentive based, that if you get this done by February, then there would be some sort of bonus incentive? I don't know how that could even work, but I'm just thinking of a way to make it so that this would be something that would be more enticing to a contractor rather than something that would scare them away.
Of course, you'd be increasing the
I mean,
overall
if
cost
it
to
went
pay
up,
out an incentive,
you know,
but you
if we-
could
if
kind
we
of
went up-
split the,
a small amount in order to get $1 million is,
Kind of a success-based
yeah,
yeah.
incentive.
I don't know.
That'll be a
Interesting
Thomas and
idea,
Hutton question. I'll ask if they
Yeah, some
could-
sort of
could see
carrot
that, yeah,
rather than a stick.
yeah. Yeah, we traditionally do it with a stick,
The stick.
so you have to do it this way. I'll ask them that question.
Okay. All right. That it?
The only, and it's really not related to Waterway Boulevard, but in our conversations with Thomas and Hutton about Waterway Boulevard, we have been also pushing, and we have in our budget and plan to do the Palm Boulevard between 38th and 41st project. There was an attempt to kind of potentially put these two right next to each other. And they're indicating that they do not think that it's practical to do that work this off-season as well. So they're recommending, and I think they're saying that that they believe that we will have to delay that portion of the project. That project, it is a distinct project, but that would be next winter and not this winter. So that's a change in the plan that we became aware of yesterday.
So, okay, so in the total, when would it go, the following year, or?
Following
Yeah.
winter, yeah, that one will be, right in the middle of Palm Boulevard in a critical part.
Okay.
So we always would want to do that in the winter
Yeah,
to not be
off-season, yeah.
disruptive. And we were expecting and anticipating that to happen this winter, but we received word that it's just not practical to happen this winter.
All right. That it?
That's it.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Off the record at 10:54.
Thank you all.